Welcome to the Baboom Baboom podcast, your go-to source for expert tips on car stereo installation, vehicle wiring, and all things wiring related. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just getting started, we've got the advice to help you power up your ride. Get ready to crank up the volume on your knowledge and make your next wiring project a success.
All right, let's dive into the world of speaker wires. You know those red and black ones, everyone's got them, but
not everyone knows what to do with them.
exactly. Today we're going to make sure you do. We're taking a deep dive into how to identify positive and negative speaker wires. Because honestly, who wants to deal with muffled music?
No one wants that. It's crucial to get those wires right for a good audio experience. It's really the foundation.
This article doesn't mess around either. It says if your speakers are wired out of phase, they're basically working against each other. Can you imagine?
It's like trying to run a race with your legs working against each other instead of together. You're not going to get very far.
So instead of amplified sound, you're getting
Canceled out sound.
yikes. Okay, so how do we make sure we're setting ourselves up for audio harmony? The article mentions color coding.
Right, color coding. That's usually your first clue. Red is typically positive, black is negative.
Seems simple enough.
It is, but there's a catch. Not all manufacturers follow those same rules, especially if you're dealing with older systems.
Oh, so you're saying we can't just rely on color. What if we're dealing with a vintage system or something?
Then it's time to become a speaker wire detective. Look for markings directly on the wires themselves. Things like a plus or minus sign, stripes, maybe even a textured ridge on one to indicate negative.
Like a secret audio code. I love it.
Yeah.
But what about those really old wires? The ones that might even stump Sherlock Holmes?
The article's got us covered. They recommend two methods. A multimeter.
Ooh, sounds fancy.
It's simpler than you think, and the other is a really clever trick using a regular AA battery.
Okay, so let's break those down. First, the multimeter. What exactly does it do?
Basically, a multimeter lets you see the electrical current flowing through your speaker wires. You set it to DC voltage, touch the probes to the wire leads, and it'll tell you if the current's flowing in the right direction.
So a positive reading means we're good, negative means...
Swap the wires. It's like a lie detector test for your speakers.
I love that. Okay, but what about this battery trick? For those of us who don't have a multimeter just lying around...
This one's super easy. Disconnect your speaker from the amp, then briefly touch the positive and negative terminals of the battery to their respective wires.
Okay.
Watch the speaker cone. If it moves outward, you're in phase. If it moves inward...
Gotta swap them.
Exactly.
Wow, even an AA battery can be an audio tool. So we've got our methods, but even armed with all this knowledge, are there any common mistakes people make? Things to watch out for?
Absolutely. The biggest one, assuming all systems use the same color coding. Don't fall into that trap, especially with more complex setups.
Right, because we don't want to get overconfident.
And this is crucial. Never skip the testing.
It's tempting though, right? Just want to get everything hooked up.
I know, but trust me, those extra few minutes to double check the polarity, they can save you from a world of audio pain later.
Solid advice. So we learned how to check our speaker wire polarity, but are there other factors that affect audio quality? What about the speaker wire itself?
You're thinking like a true audiophile. Choosing the right kind of speaker wire can make a difference. It's not just about positive and negative, it's about the entire pathway that sound takes.
We'll be right back after a quick break with more on that. So we're back and ready to uncover even more about speaker wires. Before the break, we were talking about the wires themselves, and you were saying choosing the right kind can actually make a difference.
It can, it really can. It's like anything else in life.
Right.
You get what you pay for.
So what should we be looking for when we're shopping for speaker wire? What makes one wire better than another?
Well, there are a couple of key things to consider. First, the material. The wire's conductor, the part that actually carries the electrical signal, can be made from different metals, most commonly copper or aluminum.
And I'm guessing copper is the way to go.
You guessed right. Copper is the gold standard for speaker wire. It's a much better conductor than aluminum, meaning it allows the electrical signal to flow through with less resistance.
Okay, so less resistance, better sound.
Exactly. Less resistance means less signal loss, which translates to a cleaner, more accurate sound at the other end.
Makes sense. What else should we look for?
The other biggie is wire gauge. Gauge refers to the thickness of the wire. Thicker wire, lower gauge number.
So a 12-gauge wire is thicker than, say, a 16-gauge.
You got it. And generally speaking, thicker is better when it comes to speaker wire, especially for longer runs.
Longer runs meaning the distance between the amp and the speaker.
Exactly.
Need top-quality electrical wire? Baboom Baboom's got you covered. Get your 6-pack today. Each combo comes in 6 different colors and a total of 600 feet of wire. Perfect for any project, and you won't find a better price in the industry. Head over to baboombaboom.com now to snag yours. That's baboombaboom.com.
Thinner wires can introduce more resistance over long distances, leading to that dreaded signal loss. So if you've got your speakers far apart, or if you're running wire through walls and ceilings, it's worth investing in a thicker, lower gauge wire.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've got material copper good, and we've got gauge thicker better, at least for longer runs. Anything else we should keep in mind when choosing speaker wire?
You know, it might seem like a small thing, but don't underestimate the importance of good quality connectors. Whether you're using banana plugs, spade connectors, or just bare wire, make sure they're well made and make good contact.
So no loose connections. Those can really mess things up.
Absolutely. A loose connection is like a weak link in the chain. It can introduce noise, distortion, and even cause your system to cut out completely.
And all that just because of a loose wire. So we've talked about identifying our speaker wire polarity, making sure those positives and negatives are straight. And now we've covered choosing the right kind of wire. But this article also mentions something called bi-wiring. What is that all about?
Bi-wiring. That's where we start getting into some more advanced techniques. It's a way to potentially squeeze even more clarity and detail out of your audio system.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So in a typical speaker setup, you have one set of speaker wires carrying the full audio signal to each speaker, both the high frequencies and the low frequencies.
Right, highs, lows all together now.
Exactly. But with bi-wiring, you're essentially creating 2 separate pathways for those frequencies to travel. You'll need speakers with 2 sets of binding posts, and you'll use 2 sets of speaker wires to connect them to your amplifier.
So it's like having a dedicated lane for the highs and a dedicated lane for the lows. No more sonic traffic jams.
That's a great way to think about it. The idea is that by separating those frequencies, you're reducing electromagnetic interference that can occur when they're all crammed together in one wire.
And less interference means?
A cleaner, more transparent sound. You might notice tighter bass, more sparkling highs, just a greater sense of clarity and detail overall.
Sounds pretty amazing.
Oh.
But is bi-wiring something that everyone needs to do, or is it really for those audiophiles who want to squeeze every last drop of performance out of their systems?
That's a great question, and honestly, there's no one-size-fits-all answer.
So how do we know if bi-wiring is right for us? What factors should we consider?
Well, first and foremost, you got to consider your speakers.
Right, because not all speakers are made for this kind of thing, right?
Exactly. If you've got high-end speakers that are designed for bi-wiring, then yeah, go for it. But if your setup's a bit more basic, the difference might be subtle.
It's like trying to bake a gourmet cake with an easy bake oven, right? You need the right tools for the job.
That's a good analogy. Your amplifier matters too. A really high-quality, powerful amp, that's going to make a bigger difference than just bi-wiring with a weaker one.
It's like that chain of quality we talked about. Each component needs to be top-notch. Anything else?
Don't forget about your listening room.
Yeah.
Even with the best equipment and perfect bi-wiring, if your room has bad acoustics, it's like
Putting a concert hall sound system in a tiny box.
yeah, you're not going to get the full effect.
So what's the verdict? Is bi-wiring worth it?
Honestly, the best way to know is to just try it out. If you're curious, experiment with your system and see if it makes a difference you can hear.
I like that. Permission to experiment. This deep dive into speaker wires have been amazing. Who knew there was so much to learn about something that seems so simple?
Right. It just goes to show you that understanding the details, even something like a wire, can make a huge difference in how your music sounds.
Absolutely. So as we wrap things up, any final words of wisdom for our listeners?
Don't be afraid to keep learning and experimenting with your audio setup. There's always something new to discover.
You heard it here, folks. Go forth, conquer those speaker wires, and enjoy that sweet, sweet sound. And hey, as you keep exploring, here's something to think about. We've talked about all the technical stuff, but what about the music itself? Does the type of music you listen to change how you think about your speaker setup? Something to ponder on your audio journey.
Need top-quality electrical wire? Baboom Baboom's got you covered. Get your 6-pack today. Each combo comes in 6 different colors and a total of 600 feet of wire. Perfect for any project, and you won't find a better price in the industry. Head over to baboombaboom.com now to snag yours. That's baboombaboom.com.